Hi, I'm Jennifer Bourne of jenniferbourne.com, and I'm glad that you're here because today I am talking about a tool that I think is pretty awesome. Content Snare. Now, I get asked for solution, product, course, service provider, and plugin recommendations all the time. And it kind of got me thinking, I should start sharing some of these awesome quality tools and resources that I love, not just in private one-on-one conversations, but on my blog so you can benefit too. Plus, doing so will give me a handy link to be able to send to people in the future when they ask me for a recommendation. It's a win-win all the way around. So, earlier this year, I connected with James Rose, a software developer from Brisbane, Australia, who reached out about an interview for his brand new podcast called Agency Highway. He had heard about Profitable Project Plan and wanted to talk shop. What's really funny is that while James was looking me up and researching Profitable Project Plan, I was researching his product, Content Snare, and I was looking him up. I was already planning on reaching out to him, but he totally beat me to it. Thankfully, when we connected, we were both able to block out a large chunk of time and get both the podcast interview done and get all my Content Snare questions answered at the same time. Now, you know those conversations when everything just clicks and it's super easy? That's how my conversation was with James. And I swear, if we weren't so busy, we could have probably talked all day long. Definitely, if you haven't watched it, go check out my episode of content. Go check out my episode on Agency Highway of my client management system, Profitable Project Plan. If you Google Jennifer Bourne, Agency Highway, client management system, you're guaranteed to find it. But enough about that. I want to dive into Content Snare. So first, what is Content Snare? Content Snare is software that helps digital agencies and freelancers get content from their client with greater ease and less stress. After hearing so many horror stories about website content from other agencies and freelancers, Content Snare was created to streamline the content gathering process through a step-by-step software system that facilitates the gathering of content all in one place and automatically follows up with clients if they're behind. So why should you use Content Snare? Now, let me share. I have been working as a designer for over 20 years, and getting content from clients, especially website content, is the worst and most difficult part of the project. And don't even get me started on those email trails that seem to go on forever of the back and forth and back and forth. And the client says, well, I sent that to you 3 weeks ago, and you have to troll through all the emails and it's not there. And it's a nightmare. And that experience isn't unique either. My experience isn't unique. Every time you bring up the content gathering process in a group of designers or developers, freelancers, and agency folks, you get this like collective groan and eye rolling, right? Clients have a hard time getting their website content done. They have a hard time organizing it and providing it to their designer or developer on time. This usually results in extra project management time, back and forth emails, lots of frustration, project delays, and eroding profit margins. And if you don't handle it with care, the whole situation can ruin your chances for a killer testimonial and case study at the end of the project. Now, I had this realization way back in 2011 when I first created my client management system that is now Profitable Project Plan. I knew content was a problem in many projects, and I knew it wasn't necessarily my clients' faults. Right? What most designers and developers forget is that our clients aren't copywriters, and they don't build websites often, if ever, so this is all new to them. They don't know what they're doing. Writing website content can be intimidating and scary and overwhelming for them, right? This is why I created a system for gathering content using design mockups, content checklists, detailed instructions, and content templates for clients to just fill in and save their content. Now, this system solved pretty much all of my content woes. And honestly, I'd never seen a system like the one I created 7 years ago until I saw Content Snare. Content Snare mimics my entire website gathering process that I manually manage, but it does so in software, even easier, right? I just about died when I watched the original beta walkthrough video that James sent me because it was like James and his team read my mind and implemented my entire system, but in a totally better way because I'm not a developer and I don't write software. This is why I was so excited to talk with him about their product. You can check out the video. I've linked to it on my blog post, that the beta video that James had sent me. But I want to talk about how Content Snare came to be, because it's a story that I, respect. James and his company have been building software for years, and their original idea wasn't even to create a tool to help facilitate the gathering of content. It was to improve the briefing process. But when they began doing market research and talking to designers and developers and asking what their biggest problems were and where the bottlenecks and projects were, everybody said content, right? Nearly every single one agreed that the process of gathering content from clients stinks. So they dove into the creation of Content Snare. And as a designer, what I really appreciate about this project or this product is that they didn't just do the typical developer thing and jump right into building it. Instead, they sketched out their ideas, they mocked up some wireframes of their ideas, and they immediately brought in a UX designer to turn those wireframes into complete concepts. After that, they threw together a landing page with just the design mock-up screenshots, like they didn't even exist yet. They used the mock-ups from the designer on the landing page, and they did it from like an Airbnb while traveling. And then they did a pre-launch to pitch the idea. And the response was totally overwhelming, because this is a serious pain point for designers and developers. Hordes of people responded, all saying they have the same problem. And they began growing an email list and even did some initial pre-sales to validate the fact that it was a good idea. So Content Snare's been out for about a year now. This means that their customers have had a chance to use the software, and they've had a chance to gather feedback and see how people are using it, and where it's doing a really good job and where they're kind of failing and struggling a little bit, right? So no software is perfect. And the Content Snare team will admit they had issues in the beginning, right? But things are becoming more streamlined as more people are using it, and they're getting real world firsthand feedback. And the product is getting even better. Now, what I also appreciate is James and his team don't develop the product in a vacuum. They actually look at user feedback and they listen to their customers. And what they noticed over the past year is that some users were having great success with Content Snare and they loved it, and others were struggling with the software and they were canceling. And after asking users, why they were canceling and working to get more details about how they were using the software, the problem actually wasn't with the software at all. The problem was with the education and the onboarding, right? Those that were canceling their Content Snare subscription weren't canceling it because the product isn't awesome. They weren't canceling it because it doesn't work. They were canceling it because they never set it up all the way. So they weren't reaping all the benefits. So the Content Snare team is now focused more on education and training and making the software easy to use and making sure that people are actually setting it up the right way so they can leverage all the benefits that are included. They're also continuing to add new features. But I wanted to share some of my favorite things about Content Snare with you. As I mentioned earlier, I pretty much fell in love with the software the minute I watched the first YouTube demo. It replicates my entire content collection process that I have been using for the past 7 years in a simple and streamlined way. So some of my favorite features are when creating a request for content for a client, you can include actual screenshots and images of the improved or approved design mockups to give clients a visual reference of what they're providing content for, right? What this does is it also helps ensure that clients are sending you content that matches the mockups. So you don't have to go back to the client later and say, what were you thinking when you sent me this? Like, this doesn't match our mockups that you approved at all. Another thing I love is that you can add instructions for the clients, or you could add reminders and prompts throughout the content request to help the client get things done easier. So if there's a headline field and you're asking the client for a headline, you can put instructions of how many characters it should be or how many words, or you can say, remember, this should be, really compelling and help people realize they're in the right place, or, whatever. Another thing I love is that you can create reusable content templates. So you don't have to start from scratch every time you have a new project. This saves a ton of time. And because you're managing how the client is providing the content to you, they're simply filling in the content templates that you're providing them through Content Snare. You get it back neatly organized in the exact formats you need it. This means adding the content to the website is simple as copy and pasting. You're not having to dig through these unorganized Word files and trying to dig through a mess of client content where their organization system is not the same way you would organize content. I also love that when a client completes a content request, when they send it all, you can approve it and it kind of locks it down to prevent your client from continuing to change it once you've already started adding the content to their website. So that is definitely a good quality control tool right there. I also like that you can set kind of limits and parameters on things like image size and text length. So your client knows exactly what to provide and you don't have to go end up doing a bunch of later work that you aren't planning on. I also love that you can review the progress of all outstanding requests in one dashboard to quickly see if you kind of need to do anything to follow up with clients, right? So you can manage multiple clients' projects and multiple content requests all in one place from that dashboard. The last thing that I want to share that I love is that there's automatic client follow-up built in. So once you send the client a content request, you can set the software to automatically follow up with the client if they haven't added any content after a certain number of days. Or let's say if after 5 days a client has put content in the request, you can send them an email like, hey, I saw you got started. Let me know if you have any questions. Or if after the same number of days, a client hasn't put any content in, they haven't done anything, you can send email B that maybe says, hey, we sent you this content request. We noticed you haven't done anything with it. What's the holdup? Right? And the follow-up is all rules-based, like setting normal email rules. So you can create as many rules as you want to work however you want. And if you can set up an email rule, then you can set up a rule in Content Snare. One of the other things I wanted to share with you is that we have been talking all about designers and developers. We have been talking all about gathering content for website projects. Now, Content Snare was created to help freelance designers and agencies make the content gathering process easier. But this software is totally not just for designers and developers. In fact, Content Snare can be used for pretty much any situation that requires you to gather content from someone else. So a couple use cases other than designers and developers that might use this software are event organizers who can use it to gather bios, talk titles, talk descriptions, handouts, photos, and more from speakers. Virtual assistants could use it to gather content from their clients for email newsletters, social media, blog posts, and other projects. Marketing firms can use it to gather content from clients for print materials, social media, and marketing campaigns. Podcast hosts can use it to gather content from guests, like bios, social media URLs, history, quotes, favorite books, or any other things that they need from their podcast guests. And pretty much anybody could use it to collect testimonials too. So you can boost your profitability with Content Snare. If you have been following my blog, you've read any of my guest posts on other sites, you've been connected with me on social media for any length of time, or watched any of my other videos, you know that maximizing profitability is my top priority after providing extraordinary client experiences. Reducing administrative time on projects and increasing profits are the catalysts behind the creation of Profitable Project Plan and pretty much everything I do in my business. And Content Snare does exactly that. By managing the content collection process, Content Snare enables you to gather content on time in an organized way in the formats you need without stress and without a whole bunch of back and forth email and extra client handholding. So just like the automated client management that I teach in Profitable Project Plan, Content Snare allows you to request content for your clients and then forget about it because it will do the prompting and the follow-up for you. It's pretty amazing, right? Investing in Content Snare is kind of a total no-brainer. So if you haven't yet, go check it out. And hopefully you will have a much easier time gathering content from your clients and your network as well. Thanks again, and until next time, have a great day.